Hello, welcome to LearnWise Academy. Today we'll be looking at multiplicity. We'll be looking at multiplicity and intercept of functions. Multiplicity and intercept of functions. Now, what are multiplicities? Now, all these things are under graph of function. That's graph of polynomial function. So, what is multiplicity? We said that multiplicity tells us how many times a factor repeats itself. As multiplicity tells us how many times a factor repeats. In brackets, it also tells us how the graph behaves at x-axis. That means in a polynomial function or in a polynomial graph, multiplicity in that graph tells us how many times a factor repeats itself, or it also tells us how the graph behaves at x-intercept. Now we have two kinds of multiplicity. We have the even multiplicity and the odd multiplicity. So for the even multiplicity, these are the even multiplicity and the what? Odd multiplicity. So what happened to the graph when we have an even multiplicity? Like what happens to the function or the graph of the function when we have an even multiplicity? We say that the graph touches x-axis and what? And bounces. That's when we have an even multiplicity, the graph will only touch the x-axis and then bounce. Then the second one is odd multiplicity. What happens to the graph when we have an odd multiplicity? We say that the graph crosses the what? The x-axis. Just like I said, that we have the even and the odd multiplicity. So for the even multiplicity, what happens to the graph is that the graph will touch the x-axis and then bounce. And for the odd multiplicity, what happens is that the graph will cross the what? The x-axis. So there are just two cases. When you have an even multiplicity, it means the graph will touch the x-axis and bounce. When you have an odd multiplicity, it means the graph will just what? Cross the x-axis. Now, examples of questions we want to find the multiplicity of the following polynomials, which is number one, p of x is equal to s raised to power 4 minus s cubed minus 6x squared. And number two is p of x equal to minus x raised to power 5 plus 4x squared. And II3, which is p of x equal to 2x raised to power 4 minus 2x cubed minus 12x squared. So we are asked to find the multiplicity and the what? And the intercept. What are the intercepts? Intercepts are just more like where the graph cuts, or where the line of graph cuts in a particular polynomial graph. Okay, now let's look at number one and see what number one says. Number one says p of x equal to s raised to power 4 minus x cubed minus what? 6x squared. So for number one question, p of x equal to x raised to power 4 minus x cubed minus 6x squared. How are we going to resolve this particular problem? The first move to take is what? Is to say solution. So after solution, what's the next move we'll take? Is to bring out and write down our functions. So what's our function? Our function says that p of x is equal to what? X raised to power 4 minus what? X cubed minus 6x squared. So after writing this now, what's the next move to take? We solve for the roots, because for you to get the multiplicity, it's more like solving for the roots. When you solve for the roots, you now see the factors of the roots. Then you now check how many times the factor repeats itself. Remember, we said multiplicity tells us how many times a particular factor repeats. So for us to know how many times the factor repeats, we need to find the roots of the function first. So how do we find the roots? Remember in our last video where we did roots, we say that let p of x be equal to 0. So when p of x is equal to 0, what's the next move we take? We put 0 anyway, we are seeing p of x in our question. So we're going to have x raised to power 4 minus x raised to power 3 minus 6x squared, everything equal to what? 0. So what's the next move after dealing with this? This is a polynomial of degree 4. A polynomial of degree 4, I mean to say. Is a polynomial of what? Of degree 4. So how are we going to work with this? We check if there is anything common. If I watch here, there is x squared. There is also x squared inside s cubed. I can factor that out. There is also x squared inside x raised to power 4. So what do? We factor out x squared. X squared is common in all of them, so we factor it out. So we'll bring out x squared brackets. So factoring out means dividing everything you have by what you want to factor out. So I want to factor out x squared from this. So I bring out what I'm factoring out, which is x squared, and divide everything here by what? By x squared. So divide x raised to power 4 by x squared. You have what? X squared remaining, minus x raised to power 3 by x squared. You have x remaining, minus x 6x squared divided by x squared. You just have 6 remaining. So everything will be equal to what? 0. So what I will simply do is to bracket all sides. So if I bracket all sides, what am I going to have? Bracket x squared, bracket x squared minus x minus 6, everything equal to what? 0. So what's the next move? The next move is to equate each bracket to 0. Equate each of the brackets to 0. So the first bracket is x squared equal to 0. And the second bracket is what? X squared minus x minus 6, everything equal to what? 0. So after this now, what do? After x squared minus x minus 6 equal to 0, what do? X squared equal to 0 is already settled. We have already brought it down to the lowest form. So we'll look at this. This is a quadratic equation. How we're going to resolve this? So we just get the factor of this particular quadratic equation. So what's the factors of this quadratic equation? We just bring it out. X squared. We're still going to come back to this place, but let's just bring out this particular quadratic equation and then solve it. So we bring out x squared minus x minus 6, everything equal to what? 0. So what do we do now? We solve the quadratic equation. We can cross this like this. This times this will give me minus 6x squared. So we look for a number that if we multiply, we have minus 6. When we add, we have minus x. A number at which we are going to put x in. When we multiply them, we have minus 6x squared. And when we add them, we have minus x. Those two factors are what? They are minus 3 and plus 2. That is minus 3x and plus 2x. So we replace that particular number with our sum. Here is our sum and here is our product. So we replace our sum with the factors we have gotten. So replacing our sum with the factors we have gotten, what do we have? We have x squared minus 3x plus 2x. Then you now put back your minus 6. Everything equal to 0. So look at what we have. I just replaced my sum with the two factors because minus 3x plus 2x will still return back to what? Minus x. So what do? We simply bracket them in order to factor out what's common. So what's common here? X is common. We bring out x. We can now divide inside the bracket by whatever we have. So by x, I mean to say divide the bracket by x. If we divide here by x, we have x minus. Divide here by x, we have what? 3 plus. Looking at this bracket, what's common? 2 is common because 2 is here and 2 is inside 6. So divide here by 2, what do you have? X minus. Divide here by 2, what do you have? 3. And everything equal to what? 0. So since this two bracket is the same, I'll just pick one, which is x minus 3, and put those ones outside the bracket inside the bracket, which is what? X plus 2. Everything equal to what? 0. So what does it mean? This means that x minus 3 is equal to 0, comma, x plus 2 is also equal to what? 0. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to lift, let me call this star star. I'm going to lift star star and put it into what? Into star. So if I lift star star and put it into star, what am I going to have? I'm going to have that x raised to power 2 equal to 0, comma. Remember my star is now represented with star star, which is what? X minus 3 equal to 0, comma, x plus 2 equal to what? 0. So I just put this into this guy. That was what I did. So what would it be now? So we'll start, checking out the degrees of all these things to know what our multiplicity will be. So if you look at this, very, very carefully, you observe that this is x squared minus 0. There is no number here. That is x squared minus 0. We don't have any number here. So since this is x squared minus 0, what does it mean? It means that this is x squared minus 0, or this can be written as x minus 0. Okay, let me write it. This can be written as x minus 0 all squared equal to 0, comma, x minus 3 equal to 0, comma, x plus 2 equal to 0. So we'll now check the degrees of each bracket. The degrees of each what? Bracket. So now the multiplicity of 0, the multiplicity of 0, which is the multiplicity of, look at what we're looking for, the multiplicity of 0. Here we're going to find the multiplicity of 3. Here we're going to, because here is plus, we're going to find the multiplicity of what? Minus 2. So the multiplicity of 0 is, we check the power of what we have here. The power of what we have here is what? 2. So the multiplicity of 0 is what? 2. So what about the multiplicity of, remember we have minus 3 here, so it means it's the multiplicity of 3. So the multiplicity of 3, we check the power of this bracket. The power of this bracket is what? 1. So the multiplicity of 3 is what? 1. So we check the multiplicity of, now we have plus 2. So it means we are looking for the multiplicity of what? Minus 2. So the multiplicity of minus 2, what's the power of the bracket? Power of the bracket is 1. The multiplicity of minus 2 is what? 1. So this implies that the multiplicity of 0 is even. The multiplicity of 3 is odd, because multiplicity of 0 is 2 and 2 is even. The multiplicity of 3 is 1 and 1 is what? And 1 is odd. The multiplicity of minus 2 is 1 and 1 is also what? Odd. So this is how we find multiplicity of any polynomial function. Now over to number 3. After solving number 3, you will now help us work with number 2. Number 2, which says that p of x is equal to minus x raised to the power 5 plus 4x squared. So after working with number 3, you help us work with number 2. It's as simple as number 1 and number 3. So what do we do in number 2? It's as simple as all other ones we have been working with, just like the way we did number 1. So simply say solution and we'll repeat our question. So what's our question? The question is that p of x is equal to what? 2x raised to the power 4 minus 2x cubed minus 12x squared. So what's the first move? Is to find the roots. So if you find the root, what are we going to have? We're going to have 2x raised to the power 4 minus 2x cubed minus 12x squared, everything equal to what? 0. Now if you watch very carefully, something is common. Something is common. In order to solve this polynomial equation, something is common. X squared is common. X squared is here, x squared is here, and x squared is here, because x squared is inside x cubed and x squared is also inside x raised to the power 4. So now if you watch very carefully, we also have another thing that is common. 2 is here, 2 is here, and 2 is inside 12. So we can decide to factor out what? 2. So if we factor out 2 and x squared, which are the things that are common, what are we going to have remaining? If I divide 2x raised to the power 4 by what? 2x squared. 2 will cancel 2. X raised to the power 4 divided by x squared will give you what? X squared. So I'm just going to have what here? X squared. Minus 2x cubed divided by x squared. I'm just going to have what? X. Minus 2x squared divided by 12x. I'm just going to have what? 6. Because x squared will cancel x squared. Then 12 divided by 2 will give you 6. So everything equal to what? 0. So what am I going to do in this situation? I'm simply going to equate each of them to 0 or put each of them in a bracket. So I'm going to have 2x squared equal to 0, comma, x squared minus x minus 6 equal to what? Equal to 0. Now having this now, what would it imply? First of all, work on this bracket. Remember we said we'll call this bracket what? Star. So working on star bracket, we're going to have x squared minus x minus 6 equal to what? 0. So we solve the quadratic equation. The same thing we solved in the other one. Two numbers that when we multiply, okay, let's solve the quadratic equation. But this is just the quadratic equation we solved in the first question. And our roots were x minus 3 equal to 0 and x plus 2 equal to 0. Just the same quadratic equation we solved in the first one. So I just repeated the roots. So what would this be now? This will call it what? We say we'll call this star. So when we call this star star, we put in star star into what? Into star. Remember our move, putting star star into star. So if we put in star star into star, what are we going to have? We're simply going to have bracket 2x squared equal to 0, comma, these two brackets, that is x minus 3 equal to 0, and what? X plus 2 equal to what? 0. So for this side, I divide both sides by 2 in order to have just x squared remaining. So 2 will cancel 2. We have that what? X squared is equal to 0, and x minus 3 equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. So here, I can say this x squared is something as saying x minus 0 all squared is equal to what? 0, comma, x minus 3 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. So now what's the next move to take? The next move to take is to simply say that, simply find the multiplicity now. So what's the multiplicity? What's the multiplicity of 0? Multiplicity of 0 in this situation, we check the degrees. Remember, this is degree 2. Here, there's an invisible one here. There's also an invisible one here. So the multiplicity of 0 is what? Is 2. Remember, it's minus. That's why we say 0. And the multiplicity of, remember, is minus 3 now. So we are looking for the multiplicity of 3. Multiplicity of 3, we check the power. The power is what? 1. So the multiplicity of, here we have plus 2. So we are looking for the multiplicity of what? Minus 2. Multiplicity of minus 2 is what? 1. So this implies that the multiplicity of 0 is even. The multiplicity of 3 is odd. And the multiplicity of minus 2 is also what? Odd. So this is how we solve for the multiplicity of any polynomial graph we are being given to find. So help us do number 2. Number 2 is an assignment from me to you. So just work with number 2, and if you have any problem with number 2, you can leave your question in the comment section, or you chat us up on the WhatsApp number in the YouTube channel. Your answers will be delivered to you right away. Kindly like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you can get our video when we upload them. Thank you very much for watching. Share to your friends.